going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Stephen Howson, Ronaldo Brown, XG Files. I guess we're talking about players leaving.
Do you know what? The relevance is, obviously, we can touch on Trent because Trent's Steve's favourite player. That's non-United. And then you've got...
I love this head loss.
And then you've got...
Liverpool fans.
Yes, and then you've got Bruno Fernandes, which was obviously the big news last night, and it's just whether we see the fallout of that. But the link with obviously KDB is, I think the team that are after Bruno and Saudi, it's like there's a similar kind of link towards KDB as well. But also, these three players actually have something in common. They're all the same mould of like...
creative player that loses the ball.
Chances creators, but like people talk about the missed passes, but they're like game breaking creators, and one of them is a defender, which is quite strange. But I think the main topic of conversation, as people will be speaking about, is the Bruno Fernandes news last night, which was primarily coming out from tier 1 Saudi sources by all accounts. So,
I've spoken on this.
So, yes, you are going to speak. Unfortunately, it's the XG Files, which is Stephen Howson featuring Ronaldo Brown. So you are still going to have to speak about it as well.
No, but I've literally just done a whole video on it, which these lot have probably watched. They ain't seen you do a video on it, so talk. Give me your thoughts, Ronaldo.
Ronaldo Brown.
Do you think it'll happen?
Ronaldo Brown channel coming soon. People keep...
You've been saying that for 5 years.
Yeah, people keep reminding me about that on Twitter every now and again. You said you was making one. I was like... But anyway...
Inside the mind of Ronnie.
Inside, all right. What? So I don't think this happens, right? Because...
Right, let me do it quick fire with you, right? So, do you think it happens? No.
No.
Do you think there'll be a bid?
Yes.
What do you think the bid will be?
Actually, I don't think it'll be a bid because I think the Saudis would only bid if they've got assurances from Bruno that he's actually interested, maybe.
Okay.
So, but I think...
Which you think was probably what the conversation
I think the bid will
was.
Be high, but not as high as people think. I think it'll be 100 million at most that they'd bid.
And I think United could reject 100 mil. I think it was like 150s upwards. Or like a proper blow it out the water, Saudi style 200, like just something mental.
The only way that Bruno does leave though is if, or United allow is if Bruno himself agrees personal terms and says I'd leave.
I wonder what they've said to his agent.
Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know if you've heard anything, but
nothing. By the way,
no, I'm talking about last summer. Because I'm pretty sure last summer I heard from some decent sources that Bruno was kind of contemplating his future, and he was getting a little bit disgruntled with
being dog shit.
How bad United have been, and the recruitment and the whole like managerial merry-go-round. And he was basically, and he wanted to, I think he had a meeting with the club asking him about the summer aspirations and getting better players in and the progression, because I think he sees it, he's a smart guy, 30 years old. I think he's going towards like the back end of his peak years, and he's probably looking at it thinking, I've given this club 6 years and we've won silverware the past few years, but it's been like some cover-up jobs. Do you know what I mean? A bit of papering cracks.
Yeah, and
because the
league being Premier League champions.
Yes.
And that's where you want to be.
Yeah, I think it's one of them ways he's thinking, well, last year anyway, I'd keep my options open about going to a big club abroad, possibly, where I've got a chance to win the Champions League and the league pretty much every year.
It smells like only a Real Madrid would do that to him. I don't think he's a Bayern player. Bayern never sign anyone third. Barcelona do bad signings. Don't put it past them.
Yes, and obviously he signed a new contract, so then...
Yeah, but he's only on 2 years though, I think.
Was it?
Is he 1+1?
Nah, it definitely wasn't 1+1.
2027?
Longer than that, I'm pretty sure. Well, how long was the Bruno Fernandes contract?
I'm pretty sure he's up in 2027, you know.
Almost
sure.
Yeah, because we've someone will like, yeah, 2027 +1, pretty sure is what IR has said. So, and I think United I think that option's good because it gives you an option to trigger it. But we've not heard anything from the Bruno camp that's basically shut down the noise when it comes to the Saudi links. It's been mostly the club coming out with briefs, obviously journalist Nathan Sokriski saying we're not going to sign. Put this out, we're not going to sell him no matter what.
They have to do that regardless.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Even if they're literally preparing the goodbye Bruno banner right now, they have to be on the phone tell him we're not selling.
800k.
That's the dance.
800k a week, tax free.
Might be $1 million.
That will make anyone kind of go.
Oh, mate, with a tax in Britain.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. He's a better man than me.
That's like a 10x your wage.
Do you know what I mean? You know
what are you looking at? 350 days of sunshine a year?
It's true. It's true.
He's married, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's not up chasing tail all night anyway. Getting on a mad one. He doesn't look like he's a clubber, so that's not. This is
people forget this part. This is part of the reason why United, as a club, especially our stature, you need to show signs of improving, challenging for trophies when you got world class players. Because if not, they will start to think, I want to make more of my legacy. Do you know what I mean?
This is what happened with Arsenal towards the end of the Arsene Wenger era. All their players kind of went to the clubs that were showing a bit of ambition, mainly City at the time, if you remember.
And a lot of players, obviously, we are emotional as fans. Fan base quite often is. But I think a lot of our fan base is acting like Bruno's almost indebted to us and he has to stay here to the end of his career. He doesn't, because you got a lot of people, these angry reactions to the report saying, shut up, non sorry, he's not leaving, not happening, next, not happening. I'm like, how do you know that?
No.
I think it's you.
We stopped the soup at Carrington, Ronnie.
Do you know what I mean?
If someone boshes £150 million sterling on a table, Jim Radcliffe is going to consider that offer.
It's like
and speak to the player and be like, listen, do you want me to accept this? Because I've already spent half of that cash. We're trying to finance a £2 billion stadium. If it ain't nailed down, we might sell you. So.
Yeah, it's like there's obviously it's copium. It's probably a bit of manifestation. It's a bit of projection, but it's the way some fans have come out and basically said he's not going anywhere. You talking about shut up nonsense? He's not leaving. I'm like, why are you acting like you decide that and you know for sure? Do you know what I mean? I know you'd like that to be true,
the only time
but they put it across like they're in the Bruno camp or they're at United and they've basically said, nah, we're locking him here and throwing away the key.
When I'm still not over it. 22 years ago, when Beckham was linked with Real Madrid in 2003, and I was like, literally scoffed at it. David Beckham's not leaving Manchester United. What do you mean he signed for him?
Yeah, I know. And also, is it true that thingy would Bruno say would be a is it pure profit?
He's on his second contract, isn't he? So
yeah,
his original transfer fee would have amortised, and even if it hadn't, it's nothing.
I thought it was more because of how long he's been at the club.
It's because he's. When you sign someone, what was he, 40 million, that would have been paid over the first contract, 4 years. So that gets put onto the books over the 4 years of his contract. Yeah. So by the 5th year, he's technically a sale. So if you sold him after his 5th year, he's profit.
Yeah, that is true. But to be fair, but I do agree with everyone. No, I don't think it happens because I don't see him wanting to go to Saudi. I think this would only be the type of thing I'd be worried about if it was one of the bigger clubs like Bayern, Real Madrid, Barcelona within Europe in the top 5 leagues that are after him. I just don't see him going to Saudi at this point. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I think that's the saving grace. I think I'd be more concerned.
He seems more motivated.
Yeah.
He seems way more motivated to be for his legacy to win some substantial stuff in England, maybe even with United. But I don't think you can ever say never.
Yeah. Because I think it's just his agency would have been doing due diligence when they would have had these meetings with, because I think Al Hilal having a meeting with Bruno's agency or Bruno's agent, that is likely true if they've been strongly reporting that.
And Joel, this shit happens all the time. Like I know people. I know loads of agents. I know probably about a dozen agents, and I know that they have meetings with clubs on off chance, just to sound them out. They're not necessarily going to action anything from that, but they might just go and have lunch and be like, listen, if we was thinking about this guy, what are you talking? Or if you wanted him, it's going to cost you 75 million. Do you reckon that's what they want? Yeah, it's going to be 75 plus. All right, leave it tomorrow. Or they might be like, well, yeah, we could probably pay that. What's his wages going to be look like? Probably looking at 250, 300k. Can you do that? Yeah, we can do that. All right, well, maybe I'll go back to him and have a word. Those are really informal kind of chats. They are happening 24/7. Now, this one feels like it was a bit more of a formal, informal chat. Probably with a bit more direction on it. And I say that because the fact that one detail came out of it. They want him for the Club World Cup. That, to me, puts a bit of an urgency on it. This isn't a future transfer that can happen in 12, 18 months. This is it happens in the next 4 weeks.
It's a 1 week deadline, isn't it? But I don't. Do you know what it is?
It's longer, but not much. Like 2 weeks.
I just think. I know we have to talk about it because it's news, but all in all, I've been trying to see the other side of it, but I just don't think it happens anyway. I think United know that they can't cope with losing him, because even if we do get 150 million and what that might mean for the budget and the rebuild, it's just about whether you trust United's recruitment in replacing him. Probably not. And it's not just on the pitch for Bruno.
It's been like one good fucking
it's not
objectively good signing in the last.
It's not just on the pitch that you lose him in terms of what he brings you. It's more like the whole like leadership, the big kind of central figure and pillar of like the club, and just I think it has a knockdown effect, because obviously you can see that the players in the squad look up to him. I think it's just you lose a lot more intangibly than even the things that you do tangibly with the way that he plays. I think that would be the biggest thing, and that's why the valuation, when people are saying Bruno 150 million etc, or he can't leave, and everyone's like, but he's 30, 31, no one's going to buy him for that. I think the value of a player should be, or their valuation should be the value that he holds to the club itself. Yeah, and because he's like pretty much invaluable for United would have every right to kind of say no, because he means that much to us. 150
in the
million.
same way that when United come in for a player, it gets treated different to when fucking Gillingham come in for a player, even if it was the same player. Like we've both came in for a youth player, Leyton Orient. Gillingham come in for him, they're going to get told one price. United get on the phone, it's 10x the price. I think because of what Saudi did when they first sort of entered this playing field, two and a half years ago, and the way that they sort of started just absolutely throwing dough around. If you want to come and take Manchester United's captain on the back of the season that he's just had, forget what Transfermarkt says he's worth. If you want him, it's going to have to be, the bidding might have to start at 150 million, and they might go, well, we don't think he's worth that, and we go, cool, meeting's over, it's in a bit.
Yeah.
He's on a contract. Ring him in a year when he's not.
What do you think of what Tim Collins said? It's quite an interesting point. He said we need to consider a Bruno exit strategy for a year or two, though. I think that is true.
I think
that's the sort of things that clubs do think about.
Yeah, I think you have to do that not just with Bruno. I think you have to do that with every player.
He's got 2 years left, as you said.
And you have to also think about. I think every club should have 2 players for every position, but it shouldn't be the same. If this makes sense, let me explain this. There shouldn't be it'd be great if it was. It's just not realistic. World-class player, and then capable international as your 1 and 2. It's not realistic. It'd be great if you did. It's not realistic. You need to have a complete blend. You need to have academy prospect. You need to have a free transfer old ahead. You need to have, good clubman that's picked up 400 games somehow for the club, but doesn't have a starting position and never his first choice in anyone's fucking team, but he's still there and he still fucking puts a shift in when he's required. You need all of those kind of characters to be able to put a decent squad out. And I think you need 15, 16 players who all believe their first choice to get 11 out every single week, with injuries, form, suspensions and all that sort of stuff. I think that's what you've got to have. Not only should you be considering replacing Bruno, you should be considering replacing the number 1 and the number 2 in every position, and there should be a live shortlist for all of those. A club the size of Manchester United, a Premier League club, a fucking Championship club with the turnover that they get. You're talking, 100 million still at a Championship club. They should be employing people who've just got a Rain Man level of knowledge of football. We need a new left back. That's who you should be looking at. Actually, here's the other 5, and in this order. That's the ones that you should be looking at. There should be a guy that just fucking sits in a corner office somewhere that's got a football manager brain going on, where you can walk past him and just shout fucking left-footed centre-half, and he just fucking spits 7 different fucking names at you. One that's on a free contract, there's 4 names. One that's 32, boom, there's a couple. There needs to be people that exist that are just like that. But not only do you need to do it for every member of your playing staff, and in particular your fucking 40 goal a season contributors. They need to be doing it for Jason Wilcox. They need to be doing it for Ruben Amorim. They need to be doing it for the fucking goalkeeping coach. Like, we lost fucking Benny McCarthy in the summer. Who's our striker coach?
Do you reckon him like doing personal coaching with Hoyland took the life out of him?
Well, the evidence suggests he was better last season.
Okay, true. He probably thought, do you know, let me ride off into the sunset. But obviously he's part of Ten Hag's team. But I think there is, because I'm trying to look at the other side of it. Like, as United fans, we do need to start looking almost like beyond your own nose type of time, because we have got, the way that United would have to look at it is, if he did want to go, is Bruno's got 2 years left on his contract, obviously with an option to extend, I'm guessing. I don't know if that's a player option or whether that's a team option. What's his likelihood of renewing? It'll be like 32, 33 at that time. What's the likelihood of him renewing his contract at that point? And will United be able to close the gap in a couple of years enough in terms of the European elites and the Premier League elites at this moment in time to incentivise him to stay? That's what you got to think about, because what United could find themselves doing, and don't get me wrong, this is a very high chance of happening, is in 2027, United have only gone from finishing 15th in the league to still hovering around, aiming for 8th, 7th. Do you know what I mean? 7th or 8th.
It's not enough, is it?
And is that enough for Bruno to stay at that point? And then at that point, how much do you get for him? You cannot get... Bruno will not be £100 million player in 2 years.
This is peak Bruno price.
Do you know what I mean? Right now.
Today, right now. This is peak Bruno price.
And if we don't have enough progression, which do you trust the club to do so? Do you know what I mean? Will we find ourselves in a point where we've plateaued or not made that significant amount of progress, and it's like, all right, we've got to sell Bruno now anyway, because he might leave, he's not going to renew his contract, and then you won't get nowhere near as much money as you would have got now, and then you still don't have the financial benefit of it as well. So Bruno's got to think about that. Where's this club going to be in 2 years' time? And then the club's got to think of that as well. But I just think that's why it's difficult, because, again, I think if you lose him now, it's almost like definitive that United are not going to make that progress in a couple of years because he means that much. So it's almost like United, it's just like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
You could have it as your Coutinho moment. And as I said in the video earlier, it could also be the last flashes of a dying empire. This is the last sort of cashing in. And you could be looking at a 5, 6, 8, 10-year rebuild following this. But, yeah.
Do you agree with, I'm going to ask Phil Spicer, do you think he leaves if we don't win Europa League?
I think he'll have to make a decision before then.
Because they woke up.
The final is the...
You're right.
When's the final? 21st?
Remontada Thursday.
I think he might...
Because we're still talking like we're already in the final. I can't put anything past this team.
What, to cock it up and make it exciting on Thursday?
I think 3-0, the third goal meant a lot, personally. I think 2-0. 2-0. I'm probably not sure, because we could have actually been 2-3-0 down within the first 20 minutes. I feel like we seemed a little bit...
Lindelof off the line?
Yeah, I feel like we was a bit caught off guard. Do you know what I mean? But everyone says, we only won because we got 10 men. We were 2-0 up before they even got a man sent off.
No, it was the second goal that they got the man sent off.
Yes, but we won the penalty to score the second goal, and he got sent off for it. What bear is that? Did you get me? What bearing? He was still like... Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
We was on top.
We was going 2-0 up with 11 men.
Yeah, we was on top for 5 minutes before the first goal.
Yeah.
And the second goal became because we were so on top. So, yeah, I think we're probably going to be all right Thursday.
Okay, all right. I think we'll be fine.
Listen, I've bemoaned how boring we've been all season. They have got permission to bore the place out on Thursday and stink it out and just stink the gaff out, and for it to be the longest 90 minutes ever and just be shit. And we come out there and go, there was no shots on goal for either team. Sweet.
Yeah. It's because...
Sweet.
Well, at least we got... Because obviously against Brentford was a bit of a weird game. It's still, to me, I don't know, these Premier League games I'm getting serious pre-season vibes from some of them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I feel like... And then Brentford obviously beat us 4-3 at a canter. And then you've got... Obviously, Garnacho's goal and assist, his goal was top-notch. People were still trying to discredit it, saying, like... he was bound to score one like that after 90 shots. Remember against Leicester early in the season, he bent one in top corner from like 25 yards
I don't
out.
think he had loads of shots on Sunday.
No, he didn't. I think he was on our only outlet again.
His first instinct was to cross on Sunday, which I'm here for.
I've always believed that I'd much rather sell Højlund than him. But it's just that you don't get the PSR benefit.
Yeah, well, yeah. If it's a straight shootout between those two, I think there's more chance that Garnacho can be a functional player for us down the line.
Yeah.
You've got to slap the shit out of him to make him do the right thing. But I think he can do the right thing. I think Højlund needs, some time looking at a fucking lake, listening to Coldplay, like a fucking cuddle, like a weekend retreat with Andy Cole. Like, he's got to go do some shit and change. Like, he needs to go and do ayahuasca.
I know.
He's got to fucking do some shit.
He should just go La Liga. What?
Yeah.
See Anthony's goal?
Yeah. See what he did to Bilbao's defence, maybe.
Yes, I know.
But then I look at that and I look at what Anthony's doing and I go,
Because Anthony, you know what, Anthony, yeah? It's just the separation aspect. I think Anthony gets a little bit more time to set up his shots and crosses, and it's just half a second in the Premier League.
I agree.
That's how mad how the difference is at the elite level, isn't it?
I had a look at this before because I saw a clip on Instagram. Dudes losing their shit about McTominay in Napoli. He scores a goal every time he goes on the pitch. He scored 11 all season, so factually not every time he goes on the pitch has he scored a fucking goal. He's scored a lot of goals. I think he scored more than anyone in our forward line for starters. And they're calling him a midfielder. He's also not really playing in midfield either.
Playing off the striker.
Yeah, he's doing his own thing. He's always been a fucking specimen. When he was coming on as a second striker, crashing the box, when Højlund was playing, he was finding space. Because Højlund has taken the first run to the front post. He's in space. That's what happens when you flood numbers in the box. Something we don't fucking do at the moment. Yeah, I think there's just this thing of people leave United. One, you're not playing for United, so that changes things a little bit for you. It's like, Alanga. He might work for Ruben Amorim, technically. He didn't work for Ten Hag and what Ten Hag wanted out of a winger. McTominay didn't work for Ten Hag. Probably would work in what Ruben Amorim is looking for. He probably could play as one of those 10s, given very limited defensive responsibilities. He can't pass the ball forward if you put a fucking gun to his head. McTominay. So you can't play him in midfield. But if he's finishing stuff or helping press from the front or something like that, he could easily do one of those roles. Not a problem.
Pereira made himself a Premier League.
He was never going to play ahead of Bruno.
Made himself a Premier League player though.
Yeah, he has.
So you got to give him credit for that.
But he can't play in the 6. He's got to play in the 10. He's a good 10. He's a good technical 10. He's not Bruno Fernandes. He was never going to play in the 10.
And then who else isn't? They do have a bit of that. Real Betis are probably the way they like twerking for Anthony as well. I hope they pay up when the time's right. So I think there's a lot of these football clubs and accounts that when United players go there and play well, they're like trying to rub it in a little bit when they're doing well. Because you had that with Greenwood at Getafe, and then you had it probably less so at Marseille, but you've definitely had it with Anthony.
Oh, they've took the piss. Yeah, they'd be absolutely pay up. Come on, with all the retweets you got, time to fucking pay.
Oh, yeah. But Eminem's got a super chat for you here.
Would I sell Bruno and Mainu for Wharton and Baleba? No.
That's a bull on that. Brian Casey, member for 28 months, man. Like Brian, he says, here's a thought. Is Cunha being brought in as a Bruno placement? He was in a 2-year strategy. Nah, I don't think the Cunha deal has anything to do with Bruno. I think that's just an addition to the squad. Because, when I'm talking like this thing about this, or want to be winning the title for 27 years, I don't think Ineos are that patient, That's why I don't think Ineos will sell Bruno at all, because they want the best players that they can have. And I don't really get patient vibes from Jim Ratcliffe, and Ineos.
He's an old billionaire.
I think they want success a lot quicker than you think, which leads me to believe that wouldn't be surprised if they get into the whole, if they were like, they have quick trigger with managers more than you think. Because there was another question that was put out on by this Twitter account called Prem Belief, saying United are likely to finish around 15th, 16th in the Premier League this season. If we go into next season with Amorim and we're 10th by Christmas, would you sack him?
Who knows? Because it all depends on recruitment. I think
don't cop out.
It's not a cop out. It's
Answer the question.
If we sign some fucking capable goal scorers, factually, we will not be in 10th or 15th.
Okay.
Still probably need another midfielder. The defence, if fit, is capable of finishing in the top half. Is it capable of challenging? No, it's a while off that. The midfield, there's a lot of component parts that kind of add up. You're going to lose some of those that have been pretty good towards the back end of the season, like Casemiro. Whether you bring in a Wharton or whatever you bring in, whoever you bring in, needs to hit the ground running. If you do that, and you bring in a goal scorer, this team's capable of competing. What does that mean? Top 7, probably. And it could be, it certainly won't be first, but it could be anywhere in that top 7.
How far off being almost like definitive top 4 challenges, or like even towards being up there with the...
Not next season. Unless it's a mad fluke. And actually, Amarim's been like experimenting to a mad degree this year where he kind of has focused too much on philosophy and not on performance or results. And actually next year he's like, right, I let you off last year, now we have to win.
It's like when everyone was getting all buzzy about Forest and saying, finish third, and saying, he means the league's terrible and that. And it looks to me, they might even end up finishing 7th now. Just everything reverts back to new. I just think I think the league's become so... Everyone says it's awful. We've had this discussion all the time, but I think the floor of the league's become so high that, as I said, United have probably, it's the worst era of the Premier League for United to be in a rebuild, because those mid-table to like Europa League, challenging for Champions League teams have become so much stronger now with so much money that it's a lot more of a dogfight now, because United we're not competing with United are not competing with Arsenal, City, Liverpool anymore. We're competing at this moment in time with the teams that we need to be keeping an eye on are fucking Villa,
this is always
Newcastle.
Happened. This has always happened.
Look
at when fucking Ronald
Tottenham
Koeman and Poch was at Southampton, and they were finishing just below the Champions League places. This has always happened.
So you thought back in the day,
Everton back in the day when they was with David Moyes and they were competing for Champions League places. The difference is
back then clubs like Bournemouth couldn't go out and buy Porto's star striker, Evan Nilsson. Do you know what I mean?
They kind of did though. They kind of did.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
They kind of did.
My point is, mid-table teams in the Premier League can go and buy the best players for like top team. The best players of top-ish teams in the Europe's 6 leagues.
Yeah, but look at Newcastle when they were signing the likes of fucking Asprilla and people like that, or fucking Alan Shearer for a world record fee. Newcastle, they did that like a year or something, 2 years after they got promoted from the Championship.
I don't know.
It's always happened.
And
I actually think back in the day as well, you had so many goal scorers up and down the leagues. So people want to talk about what Mbeumo's doing or what Ivan Toney did in recent years. Cool. Go back, look at Robbie Keane and Jermaine Defoe and Kevin fucking Phillips. Like, there's always been goal scorers up and down the fucking league. I don't think maybe it's stronger across a European thing, because football across the world has fucking fell off.
So Wolves were in a relegation fight last year. Not last, I know decent last year actually. And Wolves were able to go out and sign Mateus Cunha from Atletico Madrid. That's Wolves. No other league can do that with that level of... That's the point I'm making.
But it has been the case for 20 years.
West Ham were finishing 17th, and they've got Lucas Paqueta from... where did he sign him from? Was it Lyon? Lyon, and then they've signed Kudus, who was a star player for Ajax. It's like... I just think the Premier League is
Summer 2006.
That's why we
Mascherano and Tevez turn up at West Ham. 2 world-class players turned up.
Wait, what are you trying to argue? That the league's not stronger now?
No, I think that...
in terms of depth? Because
I think it's recency bias. I think there's always been ridiculous players, and the Premier League has always had this strength of being able to bully not all of the top teams in all of the leagues always. That's not always been the case. But there's always been monster transfers. Chelsea out of nowhere, City out of nowhere in the 2000s just threw money and took the best players from from Spain, from Italy, and places like that. Look at fucking Shevchenko going from AC Milan to fucking Chelsea at the time. Chelsea were nothing at the time.
Well, nothing at the time, neither. Weren't they like... that was just when Roman came in with the cash injection.
Correct.
I think that definitely helped. But I just...
That was 22 years ago.
The Premier League, the floor quality of the Premier League now has never been higher.
I disagree. The likes of Hernan Crespo coming in and not really getting a game for Chelsea.
What's your basis for disagreeing? I think two people are focusing on the top half, thinking, the top quality, the teams are a little bit worse at the top. There's no way you don't think the quality floor-wise in terms of has ever been higher than it is now.
You'd have to go and look at some of the teams that got relegated. Didn't Middlesbrough get relegated with fucking Janino and Ravanelli and Emerson? Didn't that might be the look.
So you said West Ham.
There you go. You said West Ham only just fucking stayed up with Tevez and Mascherano.
You said West Ham had Tevez, but this is why you're missing my point. Where did West Ham buy Tevez from?
Corinthians.
So who was Tevez? Who was Tevez before he came to West Ham? You're talking about what you're mentioning Tevez and Mascherano as the players that they became, not what they were before they were signed. That's the big difference.
At the time, because when they signed, people was like, "Oh my fucking god!" So let me just go on this, right? So you talk about the floor of the Premier League improving, but let me just talk to you about the players that was in this squad, right? So you've got wasn't actually that good a fucking squad in the end, but
Eminem's right. That's what I'm saying. Bournemouth have the same transfer budget and money as Juventus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's gone a little bit different like that, but that's kind of been the case for 20 years.
Hey, they've got a lineup where, look at them, they've got Evan Nilsson starting up front because they've sold Solanke for 60 million from Porto, and then they've signed in Justin Kluivert, and it's just like all these it's just the money that they have. I don't know. I just think there is no way you can argue that the floor level of the Premier League has ever been higher than it is now. There is so much quality. I think you can argue the top teams might not be quite as good as the top teams were about 15, 20 years ago. But I think the teams from mid-table and below...
This is what I'm trying to find here. I'm trying to show you that.
Are definitely better now.
I'm just seeing what were the most expensive transfers.
It's like people be like, Leeds had Rafinha. You got to think, what was Rafinha before he went to Leeds? Do you know what I mean? And now he's rassing up for Barcelona, might be winning a Ballon d'Or. Leeds might end up having a Ballon d'Or player. Nah, it's mad. I think people that are arguing that it's not the case are just... So you said recency bias. I think I'm opposing to that. I think it's all nostalgia. That's what it is.
So... Newcastle were taking Obafemi Martins off Inter. Tottenham were taking Berbatov from, which was a Champions League semi-final team, to Tottenham.
Yeah, Tottenham. Go on.
You know, all of the big transfers in world football 20 years ago were the Premier League.
So,
and that's been the case.
Berbatov was at Inter Milan, you said?
No, Leverkusen. Yeah, which were a Champions League semi-finalists. Spurs, who are, I don't know if you knew this, not Champions League semi-finalists, taking their best fucking player.
What year was that?
2006.
19 years ago.
Yeah. Chelsea was doing it a little bit different because they had the sugar daddy thing and they weren't PSR, FFP and all that nonsense. You could just fucking go buck wild. And they did.
I think the money argument is probably the best way to project this argument, because all it means is that when you talk about financially, the financial power of teams in the Premier League now, and then you like to Bournemouth having the same transfer budget as Juventus, is that these teams can go out and spend 100 million, 150 million in the transfer window, which they couldn't do in the past. And that way they can buy quality teams and levels that we are seeing, which makes the parity in the league a little bit better. It's a bit more difficult because everyone's talking about how City run away with the league and Liverpool ran away with the league. Have you seen the European Champions League race? How close the points are? How can you look at that and say that's not competitive? I think people just complain nostalgia-wise for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I believe we're looking at a very high quality in terms of throughout it Premier League. Even though you might argue that the top might not be what you want it to be.
I think it's miles off.
miles off would be very disingenuous. Say it's better, but say miles off.
Well, no, I think world football as a whole is miles off. I think there's a few reasons for that. Some people think that everything gets better every single year, and that's not the case. And I think the easiest way to explain that is like the heavyweight boxing division. It's fucking shite, right?
That I agree with.
Right?
Yeah.
People, look at sprinting, right? Sprinting. We are not getting better. People aren't touching what Usain Bolt did. So therefore, sprinting is not better than it was when Usain Bolt was fucking out there finishing his dinner in 9.5 seconds, right? There is not always constant evolution. Sometimes you can go backwards. For me, the Premier League as a product, in terms of its entertainment and its quality, has massively gone backwards. Is that because United are worse? Probably, on some level, right? But also, objectively, it's fucking boring.
Do you think the robotic footballer Pep?
I don't necessarily think it's all down to Pep. But I think that there's been, over the last fucking 10 for sure, but probably more like 15 years, there's been a selection process of academies of picking lads that are going to end up 6'1", 6'2", can finish a bleep test, and have got a fucking touch for days. And the result of that has become robotic, safety-first players. All of the flair, individuality, and risk has been trained out of players. We're far too much focused on there's only one way to play, there's only one way to develop. And you're seeing the likes of Nottingham Forest have been successful this season by switching it on its head and almost going to a non-league style of play. A very direct, very English, 80s direct, second ball, percentage football style of play that's very aggressive.
All right, so as part of this argument, just us subconsciously, especially you that's grew up with United winning everything, is do you think it's a bit of like top team insecurity where you can't turn up to like Bournemouth away and Fulham away like you would in the past and be able to win 3-4-0
No, home? But that didn't fucking happen.
Do you know what I mean?
That provably didn't fucking
so
happen.
I don't know.
Back in the day, when the point spread was smaller, it was harder to win. When United were winning the championship with 79 fucking points, like in the treble season, that was because we didn't turn up at every other team in the league and swat them aside. We didn't. It was a lot more competitive. That's why the points tallies were less. When the points tallies are more, that means that actually now the teams are turning up and slapping teams around more than they ever have done before. And that's provable by the fact that it used to be 40 points to be able to stay up. Now you're fucking staying up with like 29. Like, it's insane. The points drift is real. And the reason for that is because it is far less competitive than it ever has been. Factually.
How is it far less competitive?
Because it's less competitive.
So wait, it was pretty much the same top four every year. I remember Grand Slam Sundays.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How is it less competitive?
The teams at the top.
When there's more teams competing for like Europe now and the points total, especially look at the Champions League race this season. Right. But there's like a 5-point gap between like
you need to go
third and eighth.
How's
that not competitive? Are you talking competitive in terms of winning the league, or are you talking about?
I'm talking competitive across the league. The league is less competitive than it ever has been, and it's not opinion; it's maths.
Can you get the points table up, because there's a really competitive Champions League place race going on now, but apparently it's not competitive.
No, but this season's more competitive than the last few seasons in terms of that, because there hasn't been a team that's run away with it, or a couple of teams that have run away with it in that sense. But over the last 20 odd years, the points have done that. The teams at the bottom are getting less, the teams at the top are getting more. That's literally the definition of it being a less competitive league.
So between 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, which is Villa, Forest, Chelsea, Newcastle and City, it's 4 points with 3 games to go. And it's been like that for the past few weeks, and that's what everyone's said. The league's already been decided, but there's been a very competitive Champions League race, because that is...
Right.
That's competitive.
That's one aspect of the league, but it's still not competitive. When you look at the bottom, and you see the bottom team's got fucking 11 points, and then the team that above them's on 21. Someone's going to fucking stay up without 40 points, probably.
Really?
West Ham might not get 40 points in the last 3 games.
All right. Do you know what this also proves? The fact that we've got
Manchester United haven't got 40 fucking points.
Do you know what? Listen. Do you know what this actually proves? We've had back-to-back. I don't know what's happened here. There's back-to-back seasons now where the 3 promoted teams are getting relegated. If that's the case, then does that mean the quality in the Premier League's just gone to a level now from the floor perspective that Championship teams can't compete with?
No. I personally think what it is that the teams that have been promoted have been promoted playing a certain style of football, and because there's this fucking like mantra.
Oh, so they're just not as good as the.
But I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain because what's happened in the past is there hasn't been the teams that have come up from the Championship have played the current Nottingham Forest sort of style. Have been like aggressive, get in your face, and they've stuck it on you. And when you've seen teams come up, they've continued to do that, and they've stuck it on teams because it's a different angle at football. What you've seen recently, like I called it at the start of last season, didn't I? When Burnley came up, Burnley was so good under company in the Championship. I was like, they're not a fucking prayer. Are they going to do anything? And everyone was talking about them potentially being a top 10 finish when they came up. I was like, they're not going to do it because the way that they play requires good technical ability, right? It does. And they can happily bully the rest of the Championship with that. But they don't have the technical ability. Like Ipswich are going to go down, but they've got League One players in their team. That isn't even a Championship team, really. That's a fucking hybrid.
So, because you're talking about the money as well, like Forest, when they got promoted, they bought like, what was it, 15, 20 players?
Oh, in a week?
They spent 50 million on Morgan Gibbs-White, by the way, Nottingham Forest. This is the amount of money we're talking about in teams that are in the mid to the lower table in the Premier League, by the way. And I think my argument of the floor level of the Premier League being the highest it's ever been is proven true in terms of the past couple of seasons. The fact that Championship teams don't have a prayer when they come up. I think it's the first time ever that it's been back-to-back seasons where the three promoted sides have gone straight back down. And I think that trend will continue because the teams that are in the Premier League for a sustained period, they've got so much money now, there's so much better run that the level's gone higher from that mid to lower table where they can't compete with it.
Maybe, but it's still not a competitive league. The teams at the top still take more points from everybody else than the teams at the bottom. The parity is just nowhere near what it was. And I personally also believe the quality isn't as well. And it's a weird thing to say because at the moment it does feel like the Premier League is strong compared to the rest of Europe. But when I was growing up and watching football, I would look at the likes of the Italian league. The Italian league was strong. The Spanish league was strong. We would go to places like Hungary and play teams like fucking Honved and be worried. United drew Honved in Europe now. If you didn't beat them 4-0, people would see their ass. Right? And that, again, that's a little bit of money. Red Star Belgrade winning the Champions League, was it 91? Right? With basically a homegrown team. Can't happen nowadays because of the money and the way that the better players have been accumulated. I also think squad size has had a massive impact on that. I think squad size was a way back in the day that you'd get more variation in results. You know, United lost the league in 1992 by having to play 4 or 5 games in like 8, 9, 10 days. But we only played about 12 players in those games. We ended up losing all them fucking games because we had all those games to play back to back to back to back. And that was one of the reasons why Fergie switched it up before 1999, going to more of a squad-based thing. But I think just the quality of the footballers. You know, people talk about Roy Keane like he was just some fucking Vinnie Jones type character. Roy Keane would transcend any era. David Beckham transcends any era. Ryan Giggs transcends any fucking era. Jaap Stam transcends any fucking era. You know,
I think players should be rated relative to the era they played in, though.
That's true.
I don't think when people say this midfielder was better than this midfielder back then, I don't think it's fair to say. I think you've got to judge players how good they were or their standing relative to the era that they played in.
Well, you have to, because you look at when Cristiano Ronaldo came to Manchester, you go and look at his highlights from the first couple of seasons of him playing, and you tell me how many red card offences he was getting, and they didn't even get a yellow. Like, he was just getting the shit kicked out of him, and it was the norm. Those fouls don't exist in Premier League football in 2025. You know, with VAR and with the way refereeing has gone, it's a different era. And that's why, for me, Andy Cole's record always stands up as outrageous. No penalties, or one, I think, in fucking 100 and something goals. And he did it in an era where you could actually be physical and kick the fuck out of people. And people did. Fucking Neil Ruddock broke his fucking legs. No. And set out to do that. Can't do that now.
Right, so you know what? So I'll put it this way, none of us, because this is largely subjective. It's a subjective conversation. So Steve could be right. Steve could be right.
Alan Pardew, Sam Allardyce and David Moyes were considered top coaches back then. David Moyes has just proved this season he's a fucking top coach, for starters. Best. Sam Allardyce was taking Bolton across fucking Europe and doing bits with them on no money. Where are Bolton now? League One.
When was it that Fulham? Who was the manager when Fulham won the? Did they win the Europa? Did they get Europa League final? Was it
not Steve McLaren? Was it Roy Hodgson?
I remember. But anyway, what I was gonna say is I could be wrong, all right. Steve could be wrong, all right. So it's one of them where we'll have to agree to disagree and think that one era of the Premier League, the past era of the Premier League being better, or this era of the Premier League being better. How about we just agree that they're just different? We'll just say that era is different, this era is different.
It was better because it was more entertaining.
And it's whoever, whatever you think about the difference.
We talk about the Barclays era. It was genuinely exciting. There was great strikers. You know, and that you could tune in and watch. You could tune in and watch Fulham, Crystal Palace, or you could tune in and watch fucking Spurs against Southampton and actually enjoy the game. How many games do you tune in now? Let's be real. Let's be real, right? How many games do you tune in now? When was the last time Super Sunday was Super Sunday, where you was like, I am watching this shit? Doesn't happen that often, does it?
Yeah, it's true.
How many Champions League games, unless it's hate watching Arsenal losing, how many Champions League games are you going, fuck me, I have to watch? Because in previous years, I am watching every fucking minute of every Champions League game. Now, all right, at this late stage of the game, you're watching them all. But how many Champions League group stage games are you going like, I need to fucking watch that?
Not that many. Especially now that they've met, they can get big time matchups in the group stage now because of the new format. Got like Real Madrid playing Liverpool, etc. as like the second group game. So rather than it being like a semi-final. So I do get that. Obviously, I've seen JB says, Ronnie, you are wrong. This is the thing, like, you've got to tell me why I'm wrong, because if you're just going to be like, Ronnie, you're wrong because I think the last era was better, then that's not enough. That's just your opinion versus mine. Do you know what I mean? That's what makes this an interesting conversation, because there's no real definitive answer in it, really. It's all subjective. There's not an objective right or wrong. So, but yeah, I'm happy to hear if you want to say why I'm wrong, though, JB. But is there some more super chats we've missed? Go on before we dip.
Akash says, I would sell Bruno for 150 mil, no less. Build a squad around the next generation talent in Menu. Sorry, guys, but spend wisely, please. And Jibak says, if we do sell Bruno, who can replace him quality-wise? Would be interesting in United. Can we use the money from this sale to buy Daniel Levy from 2013? Someone says I would sell for 80 million.
I've seen some people say they'd sell for 90. Because people think that United, because of the money, the pure profit from it, that United would have, because they need so many players to rebuild.
Listen, I think the PSR thing's less of an issue than people think. I think there is no money is more of an issue than people think. I think by PSR we'll be all right, not a problem. Like technically they'll be like, yeah, spend what you want, but then the bank will be like,
yeah, fairs.
Righty then.
Right.
Cheers everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that shit, and we'll catch you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.